Town Hall, there were 6 compromises. And to me, that fit my uncomfortableness in not being able to support the initial project, because I felt that, like anything else, similar to what we've seen here tonight on other issues, you can reach a compromise. You know, that's what democracy is. That's what the town policy is. But at some point, you know, there's some people that say, you know, I want to work on this and I'm satisfied with the end result, and they are, but then there's some people who are not. A lot of times, important issues to the town, there's a small minority, or maybe a majority, that didn't get their way, and I cite the bike path. I wasn't on the board back then, but I was following the meetings that the then Board of Selectmen had. And I would say, like the leaf blowers, like Mass Ave redesign, that was a very divisive issue. And if you went with people who came to our meetings, I wasn't on the board, to the selectmen's meetings, it was pretty much 50-50, and both sides didn't feel like they were going to win. And one of the things I kind of harken back to is years later, when I did get on the board, I can't tell you how many neighbors who abut the bike path who said, I came in and I spoke against this, because I was told it would increase people coming into my house. I was told it would decrease my house value. I was told, you know, people would be peeping in through my windows, and they said, and it's the best thing that's ever happened. And that then Board of Selectmen and Town Manager, after having a study, there were federal funds available. I believe it was Congressman Kennedy, and I can't remember the other sponsors. I believe Tip O'Neill, the then Speaker of the House, also played a role in that. So back then, if you went by the similar sentiments that we have now, we wouldn't have the bike path. And I understand that people have some fears. I get that. But as a town and a community, you know, we need to make a decision, and the process is what we've followed. I'm comfortable with the compromise. Would I have liked to have gotten 100% of what I asked for? Originally, I would say yes, but now I would say no, because I do see the compromise. And concerning the bike lanes, which seem to be also on the table, and in a not positive way, I did speak with Representative Ann Paulson about, you know, Mass DOT and bike lanes, and she told me she was one of the sponsors of a bill that required cities and towns receiving certain funding that they consider it. And if they can do it, they do it. So I liken that back to the bike path. Arlington has changed. It's changed since 1950, 57. It's changed since 1975. We all have to recognize that and have faith in the people making the decisions. If not, they can, you know, vote the decision makers out. But, so I understand where the speaker is coming from. I just don't want to, I feel like I'm continuing this divisive issue. You know, we're all trying to deal with leaf blowers, that's another one. So that's why I am comfortable with, you know, proceeding forward with this, and I couldn't. If you made a motion of no action.
I move, if it's appropriate, I absolutely move that we take no action on this.
And I would second it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I think, like Mr. Dunn, I mean, I appreciate passion on issues. I think all of us have been around an awful lot of public meetings, and while it could represent 60 people turning out as a small number, in a lot of cases, that's actually a big crowd. Now, to give you the perspective of where I come from and how I got involved in this town, it was with the Sims project, which was very controversial with the neighborhood there. On occasion, we had maybe 60 people show up, but in general, we took the route of working through and with town meeting. And today, you'll find that there's actually a fairly collaborative process now that's come out of that. Compromises have been made. The project is moving forward. I think that well, I understand Mr. Kaplan's remarks about how, you know, this would be supporting greater democracy. I'm not 100% sure that that's true. We have a representative town meeting here in Arlington. We already just went through a very divisive process this past summer where town meetings' previous decisions were then put on the ballot. We came up with a very messy result at the end of that. It remains unresolved. I'm not sure that at the end of the day that we really increased democracy. Rather, I think that we may have weakened town meeting a bit with that. I think that if we were to vote to do this right now, after town meeting already took a vote last year saying that they supported the selectmen's recommendation of no action for putting this to the ballot I think that we would be weakening town meeting even further and weakening the structures we have in place here. If you get the signatures, registered voters, the law states that, that's a critical mass, Godspeed. But at this point, I'll be supporting the motion of no action going forward. I think it's a very bad precedent for us to put, my last thing I'll say is I think it's a very bad precedent to put engineering decisions to the ballot. That's not where they belong.
Yeah, no, I won't go on for too long because we've been here a while, but I echo everything that Mr. Carraway and Mr. Dunn said. You know, the speech that Mr. Kaplan gave sounded very similar to the one that we heard when the leaf blowers came up, dealing with free speech and support democratic values and let our, you know, people's voices be heard. And the people's voices were heard at about 30 meetings. So I don't think that we need, you know, another forum for that to take place in. And I really like Mr. Kuro's point about weakening town meeting by constantly voting against them. And that's not how our town government system is set up. And I think that does set a bad precedence. So I will be joining my colleagues in not supporting this.
Thank you, Mr. Greeley. If I could beg the board's time for a couple of minutes, I'd just like to express an
Name and address?
opposite point of view. My name is Douglas Taft Davidoff. I've lived at 45 Fairmont Street in East Arlington since July 2009. I operate a public relations consulting practice in Cambridge. Members of the Select Board, I regret the course that this item proposes. The town has set its policy. It is populace tested already. The town needs to be debating new things: economic development, civic management, schools, human resource policy, just to name a few. We should be debating, for example, how Arlingtonians out of work for years, for whom unemployment insurance benefits are expiring, which is a new item on the scene, should be handled and how we can help them. We should be talking continuously about how to develop more and more affordable housing. We don't need to rehash this issue. It is a diversion, and frankly, it's selfish of the opponents of Mass Avenue, of the Mass Avenue Corridor Plan, to occupy the town's citizenry and their attention in this fashion. They pervert our policymaking apparatus simply because they don't like the outcome. Now, a couple of comments about why I support the actions taken by the members of this Select Board and the actions taken by members of previous Select Boards. I wanted on the record tonight that citizens stood up in support of the town's plan and its policy, your policy, our policy. A brand new book on the urban policy scene making a splash just now is The Walkable City: How Downtown Can Save America, One Step at a Time. The author, Jeff Speck, writes about many cities around the globe, but interestingly, he focuses a lot on Massachusetts. He writes glowingly around Boston, one of the world's most successful walkable cities, but he also writes about problems in other Bay State cities. For example, a very, very quick quote about Lowell that would be so easy to imagine in Arlington. Speck writes, "A couple of years ago, while I was working on a plan for Lowell, Massachusetts, some old high school friends joined us for dinner on Merrimack Street, the heart of a lovely 19th century downtown. Our group consisted of 4 adults, 1 toddler in a stroller, and my wife's very pregnant belly. Across the street from our restaurant, we waited for the light to change, lost in conversation. Maybe a minute passed before we saw the push-button signal request. So we pushed it. The conversation advanced for another minute or so, and finally we gave up and jaywalked. About the same time, a car careened around the corner at perhaps 45 miles per hour on a street that had been widened to ease traffic. The resulting near miss fortunately left no scars, but it will not be forgotten. Stroller jaywalking is a surefire way to feel like a bad parent, especially when it goes awry. The only consolation this time was that I, the author of the book, was in a position to do something about it. My point is, we have a town that is among the densest places in Metro West a town with multiple uses all over the place, a town that replicates so much of the walkable benefits of Boston. All of this is to our benefit and makes Arlington very attractive. But in Mass Avenue, we have a wrong-sized, ill-designed legacy road that puts a high-speed transit facility in the middle of a highly walkable, bikeable, all sorts of busable town. Our town plan, your plan, right-sizes Mass Avenue and shares users of vehicles, bicycles, pedestrians, buses in the surrounding neighbors and businesses. It creates safety, thinking, say, of situations like the story in Arlington of a main highway that now creates problems. The opponents like to talk about the bike path. Perhaps we should at some point start to talk about another parallel facility that was designed to do just what they want, seemingly want Mass Avenue to do. That facility is Massachusetts Route 2. I support the town process that has brought us to where we are, and I regret what I fear is a train of actions arriving that will deliver us to division and take us, the citizens of this town, away from addressing new policy needs just so we can recreate old arguments. Insanity, of course, is doing the same thing over and over again, hoping for different results. I stand tonight for sanity in the town, for support of this board in this town's record of policy on Massachusetts Avenue, and for moving forward, not backwards.
Thank you. I wish I'd let you speak in my stead. What app is that you use? Is that just a Word app that you were using there? No. Adam, did you want to also? Yep.
I'm Adam Oster, and I live on Cottage Avenue, 10 Cottage Avenue in East Arlington. I got involved with this issue walking my daughter to school. Our house is on the other side of Mass Ave from the Hardy School, and we walk there every morning. And I have to tell you that this has gone on so long. She's at the high school this year. What I really wanted to do, I have a specific request, but I wanted to make the sort of the positive case for all of the benefits that this street design has developed with input from the public over time. And these are things like the pedestrian safety islands, the turning lanes that will improve the flow of traffic, and these are also things that would not be possible, not be physically possible with a four-lane design. And I guess that's where most of my reaction to this, the idea of this referendum comes from, is it doesn't want to talk about those things. It's very partial, it's very simplistic, but I think that, and it's not really about empowering voters to express themselves, it's really about tricking voters into going on record on something that they don't actually support, because there's a great deal of support for these benefits that have been put into the design. Now, what the town has done in the past is, whenever there's been disagreement, and for some reason this town doesn't do unanimous, the town has turned that into an opportunity to go back to basics, to explain what the benefits are, and in the process, I think it's built a really deep understanding among people who are paying attention about the complicated trade-offs that are involved in the plan, and has built support for the work that the town has done. And even though, we're now basically done, we're in the final technical phase of design, we're tired of this, I am anyway, I won't speak for you folks, I think that the town should continue to use this as an opportunity to explain, to make clear. And in particular, I have a particular request, which is that the board should take this opportunity, or at another meeting, to ask the Transportation Advisory Committee for a complete accounting of what would be jeopardized by a four-lane design. Not to study and see if it's a good idea, because I think we've all been there and done that, but to enumerate what's really at stake. For example, the left turn lanes that are at Lake Street, you couldn't have those if you had 4 lanes. There wouldn't be room for them. More fundamentally, the presence of an extra lane introduces extra pedestrian risk. It's inherent in there being multiple lanes. There's even a word that traffic engineers use to describe the threat called multiple lane threat. There are also a number of changes that probably would be physically possible, but which would not be consistent with the petition stipulation that things be left as now practiced. For example, striping the street is not consistent with as now practiced because we don't stripe the street. And finally, the funding is at least at risk, and the delay is costly, even if we get the funding. I think it would be very helpful to people to have a clear enumeration, an impact statement, if you like, of what this proposal would really mean. So I hope that the board will ask the TAC to do that on its own motion, either now or at a future meeting.
Thank you. Anybody else?
My name is Chad Gibson, I live at 35 Varnum Street, and I too have been at this board for many times for the same issue. Most of the time I'd like to not actually show up. I won't be as long, I'll be extremely brief, and I will be not as eloquent as the previous speakers. But this is a real Trojan horse here, this question, and it's been raised a little bit here. This is a question that's been made to be very simple, and that it's very, very deceptive. And as town meeting members that are pushing this question forward, which I don't deny them the fact that they can do so and get their ballot on their question on the ballot through public signing of a petition, but there's a vested interest that our elected members are telling the truth. And I feel that this question, that clearly from the remarks that you've made tonight, will not go on the ballot by your pen, but it could easily go on the ballot by their actions. And I'd like to really state for the record that is really a disservice to this town. It's divisive, it's useless, and I'd really like those opponents of this question to really think about, is this valuable to our town? And I've not been here that long. I've been here 5 years. I've seen some ugly battles, and it doesn't make you feel good. And I don't want to see these battles anymore. We fought this battle on Mass Ave. Ms. Mahan, I think your statements are very, very accurate, and it warms my heart because we've not always seen eye to eye on this question. And as everyone else here knows, there have been compromises made, and everybody knows that the status quo out there right now is not okay. I've just had a young daughter 5 months ago. My wife has been walking her around a little bit with a stroller, and she told me the other day, she was down at Orvis Street in Grafton, and she said, "What are those little fluorescent signs for?" And I told her what it was about, and that they have them so you can get across the street and everything. And she said, "You know what? I understand why we do that." And I do understand. I don't think it's a bad idea. But it's not right. That is not right that my wife with a stroller has to grab a flag so people do not run her over. That's not right in a dense town like we live in, that we have to do that. And I think, those are the things that we're talking about here. It's not just do you want yes or no on 4 lanes. And so I ask again, to those people that are involved in this petition drive, to really think, are you helping this town move forward? And this town does move forward, as Ms. Mahan said about the bike path. I mean, I can't tell you there's been a real estate listing in town, in East Arlington, that does not say within the first 2 sentences, oh, it's close to the bike path. Because that is value for people here. You tell people you live in Arlington, they say, oh, the bike path is great. And this project, Mass Ave, it's not just about bikes. It's not about bikes. I mean, you guys talk about bikes all the time. It's about safety. It's about safety for everybody involved. And that's what we keep coming up here to keep pushing this ball forward the 30th time. And I'd like to think that the 30th time is going to be enough. And thank you for taking my comments.
Thank you.